This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Welcome. You're watching Living with COVID. I'm Rishika Barua. This is the show where we help you navigate the new normal. Joining us on the broadcast is a panel of expert doctors who will answer questions on living with the coronavirus. What are the do's and what are the don'ts? Dr. Titu Oman, a consultant endocrinologist from the Province and Endocrine and Diabetes Speciality Centers, joining us from Trivandrum. We have Dr. Dharmendra Jain, the HOD of Cardiology, IMS Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, is also joining us. Appreciate you, doctors, for being with us on the broadcast. My first question, is about critical care. At the time of a pandemic, it's been observed that patients are reluctant to visit hospitals or clinics. They fear an infection. What are some of the steps that are being taken to be able to address these concerns? Dr. Jain, if you'd like to begin.
Okay, so I think the main concern from the patients is that when they are coming to hospital, where they will be kept, how they will be taken care of. So for that, in our hospital, we have made a separate holding area to the patient, where we can keep the patient and the respective doctors come and see from the different departments, and we send if suspected, we send the COVID test for all of them. And when reports comes, we can divide into two groups. Like one is COVID positive, we send them to a separate building. We have two separate buildings. For COVID positive patients, we totally have a new block, super specialty block, 400 bedded ready. So on 6th floor we have COVID ICU, on 5th floor we have SARI ICU, on 4th floor we have a stable COVID patients. So like that we send them there. If some patient suppose is negative, then we send them to respective wards of old building where there is no single COVID patient is there. The patient should not think of coming. If there is a real emergency, they should come to our emergency, and we are never closed our emergency in whole lockdown until now. We are attending hundreds of patients, and they are being taken care of. So from BHU, I want to give message to whole Purvanchal patients through your channel that they can come with confidence to our hospital. They will be taken care of for their infections.
All right, I think that's very crucial message that's coming in, because remember, for the region, doctor, where you come from, there must be patients coming in from all over. And not just patients from Varanasi who you'll be catering to. Let me come to you, Dr. Oman, at this point, because I think the other very important aspect is how you're screening patients. So given the fact that a large number of patients who are actually COVID positive are completely asymptomatic, how do you then screen these patients at reception areas of clinics or hospitals? Is that a big challenge?
That's a very big challenge. And I basically work in a clinic where we see only the outpatient department is there. The inpatient facilities where I work with are working similarly to what my co-panelist has already said, that there will be a holding area and they will be checked for the COVID status and then only proceeded ahead. But where we work in the OPD setup, the screening actually takes place starting from the appointment, the call for the appointment itself. All visits are scheduled on appointment basis only. And from the appointment call itself, the receptionist asks for the travel history and any patient with COVID in the family, in the house, in the same address, locality, whether they are from a containment zone, whether they have symptoms similar to COVID illness, and patients are encouraged to utilize our teleconsultation facility for visits that may not be very much necessary. And once the appointment has been made and the patient decides to visit us, we ensure that we have constructed newer hand wash areas, and we screen them for fever as well as an elaborate questionnaire at screening. And all our staff are well trained, and they who are in direct contact with the patient are in their PPE kit, and we give separate areas to wait for the patient as well as the bystanders.
Okay. So those are, of course, some of the safeguards that have been put in place. Dr. Oman, but just a follow-up question. What about patients with diabetes? They are typically the patients, who we say have comorbidities, and they also have, other issues like hypertension. Are they more at a higher risk in terms of COVID-19?
Diabetes per se, we see that if you have diabetes, your risk of getting a viral infection like COVID increases. And when you have comorbidities like hypertension associated with that, we can see the studies shows that there is an increased risk of complications. And the only thing that can be done is that encourage the patients, if possible, to do home monitoring of blood pressure, not to skip any of their medications. There will be many WhatsApp forwards and other pseudo science oriented messages which states that you stop all your medications, these are harmful. Never to fall for that. They should stick to a healthy lifestyle practices, exercise to the extent what they can inside a lockdown period, and never skip their medications, and if possible do home monitoring of blood pressure.
All right, Dr. Jain, many patients with cardiac symptoms fear visiting hospitals because many hospitals have been declared as COVID-19 hospitals. Is it safe to visit critical care unit facilities at such hospitals? It might happen that you could be having some severe symptoms of a cardiac disease, and the hospital that's actually the closest to you is a COVID hospital. Is it safe to access emergency healthcare facilities here?
Yeah, definitely. What we are doing to such patients which are having cardiac symptoms and needs a cardiac coronary care unit, so that we keep them try to keep them in a separate area, send the COVID when they need hospitalization, and when it is become negative, so then we keep them here in a separate area, and if they are positive, then we shift them to a COVID ICU, which is in a separate building. So that is our motto, that the COVID positive patients should not be kept longer with any negative patients. So we separate them quickly as soon as possible when they are getting admitted. So we made a system of testing of COVID at our hospital, and very fast turnover is there to get the reports so that we can segregate them into COVID negative and COVID positive.
Dr. Oommen, can you explain whether people with diabetes are at a higher risk of COVID-19, and is there any extra care, special care that they need to take in order to prevent getting infected?
Well, I can say that it's a dual challenge, or it's two challenges in one. You have diabetes and COVID, so you're dealing with two diseases in a single patient. So if you have diabetes, you have an increased risk of getting COVID infection. And the key point to preventing an infection would be maintain social distancing. Do not venture outside unless it's an emergency, especially if you have diabetes. And practice wearing masks, using hand sanitizers, and utilizing hand hygiene measures always. So that is the best way to prevent infection. And the second best way is that ensure that your diabetes is always under control. If you are only on oral anti-diabetic drugs, try to monitor blood glucose at least once a week. And if you are on insulin, try to monitor it at least twice a week with the help of a glucometer, and contact with your healthcare provider at least through a teleconsultation, so that the doses of the medications, if needed, can be adjusted. Suppose if there is an unavailability of medicine also, you can contact them, and substitute can be arranged for that medication. So ensuring healthy lifestyle, ensuring social distancing, and sticking on to the basic measures, that will help prevent infection.
All right. Dr. Jain, since we are in the monsoon season at the moment, it does come with its share of flu-like symptoms. Many of us attributing flu-like symptoms to weather change. But a lot of these symptoms are awfully similar to the symptoms of COVID-19. How can one differentiate?
Actually, these flu and COVID-19 have most of the common symptoms, but major difference I will want to tell you through your channel, that respiratory symptoms are common with the COVID-19, like breathlessness. So that cough and dry cough, which is terminating into breathlessness, that is typical of COVID-19, that because of pneumonia which is happening inside the lungs, which is not common in the common flu, which is very rare. So this is major difference. Another thing I want to tell you, that it is very abrupt in case of common flu. The symptoms come within 1 to 4 days, while in COVID-19 it may take 1 to 14 days time to symptoms to come, and it's slower in onset. And that other things like fever, cough, they can be common with the flu, but loss of sense of smell, that may also be more common with the COVID-19. So these are the things. Another symptoms like non-specific symptoms like conjunctivitis or diarrhea or so these things, headache, body ache, these things can be common with the flu, but the more specific is the more important, rather than we can say that the respiratory symptom of breathlessness. So if the patient is developing pneumonia and breathlessness, that is very serious symptom, and where the patient should seek the medical attention, and it's not common flu.
Dr. Jain, if I can then ask you, a quick follow-up question there, because you're essentially saying that breathlessness is a key indicator that what you have is perhaps not a common flu, and you should in fact consider the possibility that you've contracted the COVID-19. My question to you then is, should asthma patients be taking extra care? Because in asthma patients, you could have the flu-like symptoms along with breathlessness, and it could still not be COVID. So what would you like to tell asthma patients?
Asthma patients should be more cautious because they are already having respiratory symptoms. So they should take care of their regular medications, inhalers and nebulization, and they should contact their pulmonary physician even on teleconsultation regularly, so that they should take their medications regularly. Another important thing, rather than asthma patients, the cardiac patients, because cardiac patients also have the similar breathlessness symptom, and it's very difficult to differentiate on already established cardiac failure patients or cardiac heart attack patients from the COVID-19 symptoms. So if the fever and cough is the initial symptoms, then they should not think of only cardiac and not managing only the cardiac medications at home. They should come forward and come to emergency for further checkup for COVID. If they are developing fever, they should not try to hide this symptom of fever. If
Very
fever
important,
is there,
yes.
it's not cardiac, it's not asthma, it's definitely maybe COVID.
All right,
They should
very interesting. I think the advice that you've shared, Dr. Jain, in terms of not hiding your symptoms. Don't be afraid, of acknowledging that you may have symptoms that could be similar to COVID. It can be COVID, it cannot be COVID, but it's important to access, advice from a healthcare professional. On that note, we're going to slip into a very short break. Our panel of expert doctors will continue to be live with us on the other side. We'll be back with more.
Knowledge Partner, USV, your reliable healthcare partner.
Welcome back. You're watching Living with COVID. Our panel of expert doctors continues to be live with us. Dr. Oommen, if I can come to you at this point, more and more states are now recognizing home quarantine as an option for asymptomatic or mild cases of COVID-19. Can you share with us the modalities of home quarantine in COVID? What are the do's and don'ts?
Well, home quarantine is specified by Ministry of Health, as you said, only for patients with no symptoms or very mild or in the pre-symptoms. But the state where I come from, Kerala, we have not yet instituted home quarantine. We have first-line treatment centers where they are treated even with asymptomatic patients are also institutionalized. But the point may come, the stage may come where we might also have to think about home quarantine. So home quarantine, the first do is that it should be given only, home quarantine should be offered to people only with no symptoms. And it is not offered to people with any comorbidities like diabetes, elderly people more than age 60, children less than 10 years of age, immunocompromised patients like people who have already HIV or cancer treatment or cancer survivors. They should not be offered home quarantine, and they should be institutionalized because the risk of complications developing in them are higher. And once you are in home quarantine, you should ensure that you have an able, physical, well caregiver that can take care of you. You should be in a room, preferably with an attached bathroom, and you should not venture out of that room. And if you have any suspicious signs like high-grade fever, breathlessness, or a saturation probe, if it shows less than 95%, sudden onset of diarrhea, seizures, altered sensorium or altered conscious level, these are warning signs, and you should immediately go to your nearest hospital, COVID treating hospitals, and probably they will admit you. So you should have a healthy caregiver and you should be completely isolated until your quarantine period is over and you have had a test negative that you can venture out. That you should wear triple layer surgical mask or preferably N95 mask at all times, and the caregiver also should be wearing a three-ply surgical mask at all times, and social distancing needs to be followed even inside the house.
All right, very interesting. But I also want to ask you, what about caregivers? The person who is actually taking care of a COVID-19 patient, what are some of the precautions or extra precautions that they need to take? And the use of hydroxychloroquine in such cases, it is recommended that healthcare workers, take hydroxychloroquine as a prophylactic. But would you recommend a person who is taking care of a COVID positive patient at home to also take it?
Well, the ICMR guidelines states that it encourages the use of hydroxychloroquine, but the recent evidence in treatment of COVID has not yet given so much promising results, but the jury is still out on that. So
Right.
the government authorities are encouraging the use of that. The caregiver has to ensure that they are in least contact and the patient stays isolated, and they follow the use of mask and other gloves if necessary in dealing with the patient's clothing and other stuff. Ideally, the patient should not be dealing. The patient should be dealing with those and not the caregiver.
All right, very interesting that you highlight the fact that complete isolation of the COVID-19 patient is extremely important, especially when you are in home quarantine. Dr. Jain, the other big question that a lot of our viewers have on their mind is, of course, elective surgeries at this point. How can one decide between what's an elective surgery that you can potentially hold off and what's an urgent surgery, and are elective surgeries safe at this time?
Very good question, ma'am. Actually, everybody has kept elective cases to be on hold for a while who can wait. When the life is not at stake and he can wait it safely, that your surgeon or your interventional cardiologist that decides regarding the safety of the patient. Like I can give example as a cardiologist, when the patient come with the complete heart block or acute MI situation, he may need immediate attention and he may need immediate surgery for complete heart block like permanent pacemaker implantation. So we are never stopped it and we are doing it on time for the patients. We are getting COVID done for them, and once it is negative, accordingly we treat them with the cautions which are recommended by government. And those patients who can wait for a surgery, like for toothache, if the surgery can be avoided, so then dentists want to delay it. Accordingly, the surgeon, if it is having gallbladder which is not at acute situation, then it can, if it can wait for a few months, so they are making it to wait. So it's like your treating physician or surgeon has to decide regarding elective surgery or urgent surgery.
Right.
They will decide and treat it accordingly. We have very good telemedicine consultation on in our institute also, so they can get the investigation done at home or nearby area, and they consult them regularly. We have OPD days all 6 days for all the
Right. I think it's important though that patients do seek advice from their caregivers, from their medical health professionals, in order to be able to differentiate between a surgery that's absolutely necessary and something that can potentially be held off for a later period. Dr. Uman, if I can come to you, what are the levels or medical parameters that should be monitored by a diabetic patient, and how frequently should these readings be shared with a doctor?
So I had touched upon this earlier. So it is of utmost importance that the patient tries to keep their blood sugars under control. And on an average, I would say that on any time of the day, if they can keep their blood sugars below 180 milligrams per liter on a glucometer, I would call it a success. And regarding the frequency of monitoring, at least once a week or once in 2 weeks for patients who are only on tablets, and people who are on injections like insulin, monitoring at least once a week to twice a week would be ideal. And these can be shared with your doctor and help in slight dose adjustments of insulins and other medications. It may not be practical to go for and get all the lab tests done, but at least if we can monitor the sugars at home, and try to keep it within manageable levels, your chances of getting infected by any sort of viral infection, be it COVID or any other sort of infection, would be brought down considerably.
Right, Dr. Jain, if I can ask you the same question about heart patients, what are some critical indicators that absolutely must be monitored? How frequently should you be seeing, your cardiac doctor, or how frequently should you be consulting over the phone?
So definitely, it's a very good question, and I want to give masses to all our cardiac patients, whether they are hypertensive, heart failure patients, MI patients, follow-ups. They are waiting for the physical visit, and we are giving them very successful teleconsultation program in our telemedicine hub. We have very good developed, well-developed telemedicine center, and the people can monitor their blood pressure and other parameters at home, and give their charts of these monitored things at teleconsultation clinic. And my patients are monitoring everything like weight. The heart failure patients, they need to measure their weight at home, and if they are having deterioration of symptoms, they can consult on telemedicine. And if hypertensive patients, if they are having BP out of control, low or high, they
Right.
can consult. So like that, they can monitor. It's very simple method. They can monitor it daily basis at home for pulse, BP, weight
Yes,
of the
yes.
patients. So
Well-
so that we are more informed and manage it more comfortably by telemedicine only. And most of the patients are
Right.
being managed on telemedicine.
Absolutely. I think it's very important that, both our doctors today on the show have highlighted that you must be in touch with your healthcare professional or with your doctor, follow advice and medication, but do not, feel shy to hide any symptoms or fear hiding any symptoms. And I think the second most important point is access healthcare facilities as and when you need them, because as both the doctors have elaborated, it is completely safe and they too are taking all the precautions. Thank you so much, doctors, for sparing the time of day and answering all our questions, and thank you for watching.
Knowledge Partner, USV, your reliable healthcare partner.